Hey everybody, this is Sean with Tab Performance, and I just wanted to do a quick installation video of our new 5-inch 50 cal muffler. I'm also going to go over some of the things to look out for that might cause clearance issues, and I'm going to go through the steps to get that perfect fit. So here we have our 5-inch 50 cal muffler on our 2019 Street Glide. You can see that the front section of our muffler is actually our standard 4.5-inch diameter, and it expands out into 5 inches right where that bag starts to kick out and swing down. Since this front portion of the muffler is no different than our 4.5-inch muffler, our swing arm and axle nut clearance are going to be the exact same between our 5-inch and 4.5. So as long as you have the stock height suspension, you shouldn't have any clearance issues. And the stock height, if you measure the stock shock, and here it is from center of eyelet to the center of the eyelet, we're right at 12 inches. So if I drop the suspension down to the stock height, which is 12 inches, from center to center, our swing arm is clearing. We have a lot of room to work with our axle nut as well. We have the R-Knot adjustable air ride kit on this bike, which expands 1 inch past the stock height. So this one's set at 13, and still at 13 we don't have any clearance issues, but that's one thing to keep in mind. If you're running a suspension that's any higher than 13 inches, you're going to have clearance issues on that swing arm or axle nut. So if I go from center to center on our R-Knot kit, I'm right at 13 inches. You can see I'm clearing the swing arm there, I'm clearing the axle nut. So there is a little bit of room even with 1 inch past stock, but if you're any higher than that, you're going to be running into some clearance issues on both our 4.5 and 5-inch muffler. You can also see in here we have our compressor for the air ride, and we have plenty of clearance for the compressor as well. So one thing to be aware of, if you have any other aftermarket parts installed in this area, both left and right, whether it's some kind of bigger compressor, an air tank, or whatever, you do have some clearancing issues to consider. For example, on our 17 Road Glide, we have the Exotic Customs air tank that's paired with the tail dragger suspension. You can see that air tank is very close, and I have that fully clocked, so you can get most things to work, but again, you just want to be aware of pairing aftermarket products with other aftermarket products. So if you have anything in that area, just be aware that there might be a fitment issue. But again, on a completely stock setup, we shouldn't have any issues there. Even with our aftermarket compressor, we're all good to go. Alright, so the perfect fit kind of depends on the bags you have and the hardware that you're working with. We do recommend purchasing the Bullseye bagger mounting bracket. With how these are set up, they just allow you to dial in the fitment a little bit better than the standard stock bracket. So I'll go through what they both look like on a couple different style of bags. So again, the installation is no different than our 4-inch or 4.5. Just going to slide the muffler under the header, line it up with our bracket, and then we'll tighten down those bolts. So we can get these front ones tightened, but we want to leave that clamp loose so we have a little bit of play. We can go in or we can go out, and we can clock it either clockwise or counterclockwise to get it where we want in the bag. So here's a side profile of the 5-inch muffler on our standard bag. You can see it kicks out to 5 inches right where that bag starts to extend down. And from a rear view, you can see that we really have no clearance issue on the bag at all. We can rotate that in or out just a little bit. We're just clocking it on the header, but really we have plenty of clearance wherever you decide to have it on our stock stretched bag. But now we'll install the Bullseye bagger bracket just so you can see how much more room we have to work with this bracket installed. Since the Bullseye bagger bracket is slotted, we actually have a little bit of left and right movement on here. So what you'd want to do is keep those bracket bolts loose, put your bag on, get this to where you want it, either closer to the bag or closer to the fender. Then you can take the bag off and tighten down those bolts. Then you can tighten up the clamp. All right, now we'll do the same thing with our Advent Black 4.5-inch aftermarket stretched bag. Alright, so here's a side profile of our 5-inch muffler on the Advent Black 4.5-inch stretched bag. You can see the Advent Black bags actually extend further up the bag, where the stock ones don't start extending towards the end. So these ones actually cover up a pretty good portion of the whole muffler. So here's the rear profile of our 5-inch muffler with the 4.5-inch Advent Black stretched bag paired with the stock bracket. One thing I do want to point out is this R-Knot Air Ride kit, since the shocks are bigger than the stock ones, they actually come with spacers to push the bag away from the shock so you don't rub on them. So this bag is actually kicked out more than what would typically be on a stock setup, which kicks this stretched part closer to the muffler. So this is kind of a extreme case here, and you can see as long as I can rotate that in away from the muffler, we still do maintain enough clearance. You can see if I wanted to, I could clock this out and it touches the bag. So if you're running a setup like this, you might need to play around with how this muffler sits. So that's where that bullseye bagger bracket really comes in handy. So I'm going to take this off and we'll see what it looks like with that bracket. Alright, with the bullseye bagger bracket on there, now we can try and get this where we like it. So I can slide it in towards the tire, or I can slide it out towards me. So again, with this setup, with those bag spacers for the shocks, this extra long bag and our 5-inch muffler, there's still not a whole lot of room to play with, but we can move it in just a little bit and then we can rotate it to wherever we need it. Now that I have the muffler where I want it in terms of how close it is to the bag and to the fender, now I can take the bag off, tighten those bracket bolts down, and then I can put the bag back on, and then we can move up to the clamp. Before you tighten the clamp down, you do want to make sure that you have this clocked where you want it, because we still have some rotational play there. So it does help to have 2 sets of eyes on it, but you can easily do it by yourself, so just make sure it's right where you want it. And then one thing you want to watch out for, as you tighten that clamp down, the muffler likes to walk. So if you're tightening down the clamp, the muffler is going to want to walk in or out depending on what side you're working on. So once you get this where you want it, be sure to hold it in place as you're tightening the clamp. So again, if you have the stock stretch bags that come on the new specials or the standard bag, the bullseye bagger bracket isn't 100% necessary, but it does help you dial in that fitment just a little bit better than what the stock bracket allows. If you have an aftermarket bag of any kind, it is highly recommended that you buy that. I've shown you that you don't absolutely need it, but having that bullseye bagger bracket does allow you to get it more center between the fender and the bag. So really that's all it is. It's no different than our 4-inch or 4.5-inch muffler. There's just a couple extra things you need to be aware of as far as aftermarket product compatibility. So just be aware of some of those things before you get these installed. That's all there is to it. So if you guys have any questions, you can always let us know, but be sure to hit that like button and then check us out on Facebook and Instagram.